Rifle season is just a couple weeks away for most of us here in the US, and I know that we have a lot of folks that are in a mad scramble right now to try to outfit a rifle, get out there and harvest a deer. We may have some folks that broke a scope last year and need to pick something else up, or maybe you've taken advantage of some of these last minute deals that we have out on the market. Maybe you picked up your Ruger American or a Savage Axis or a 783, and now you need a scope to slap on top so that you can get the job done out in the field. And we have a lot of budget conscious viewers. I'm going to show a couple different price points here today, but the one that I'd really like to point out is a scope that you can get actually out the door of your local store like your Walmart or your Academy for less than $100. You can actually walk out having paid tax and it'll be less than $100. And actually I've checked this out at my local Walmart and Academy, and yeah, it's actually available for about $83 to $89, as you're gonna see in most places. You can pick up the Bushnell Banner 2. Now back in the day, the Banner was just the bog standard scope. A lot of people had these. And at one point they were actually made pretty well. They had pretty decent glass. And yes, they kept that price point very low. Over time they started to get just a little crummier and a little crummier in order to meet that price point. And now we have come back. This is getting back to an image that is actually gonna blow your mind. I was blown away by this thing. Now I don't have one here on my bench. I've asked Bushnell to send me one for a more full evaluation later, but yesterday I got to check out one that didn't belong to me, but I got to kind of play around with it and see how it worked. And I was extremely impressed by it. First off, the thing that is going to stand out to a lot of you is just the feel of it. When you pick it up, it doesn't feel like a sub $100 scope as you're going to, find out on Amazon or whatever, where it feels like, aluminum was just chopped off with a hacksaw and the coatings on it just don't really seem all that good. It looks and feels actually pretty high quality. And just kind of has nicely radiused edges. It feels like everything was cut quite well on whatever mills that they had. But then the really big deal is when you pick this thing up, and by the way, it only weighs about 14 ounces, so it is quite lightweight. When you pick it up and you look through it, this does not compare to really any other rifle scope in that class, and it actually compares very favorably with things that cost quite a bit more. I'm going to recommend this scope over your Vortexes, your Leupolds, that are even double the price, because the image through this, I don't know how they've done it. I know that Bushnell has been taking a lot of their technology from their higher end scopes like the Elite Tactical, the Forge, the Nitro, and they've been taking all that and pushing it down constantly to the lower end models. And right now I'm not talking about the Banner. I haven't checked out the Banner original, but the Banner 2 specifically is just flatly amazing. As I was looking around through this scope, the resolution seemed extremely high with extremely low chromatic aberration. I didn't really notice chromatic aberration much at all. And it holds up that resolution from edge to edge. And that doesn't really compute for me, the fact that you could get an $89, $85 scope that has resolution like that. I could see all kinds of fine details, and I could see them not only in some of the brighter areas of where I was looking around, but I could see them in the lower brightness areas as well. So if I looked off into the shadows, I could still see lots of detail. This is a scope that should perform, even at some of its higher magnifications, as you get to dusk and then that 30 minutes beyond. If it's a really cloudy day, you're not going to really be losing that image. It's still going to maintain. It's going to look really good. It seemed like the light transmission was extremely high. Part of the reason for this is that it has the exo barrier coatings on the outside that's going to help to absorb a lot of light, and it's also going to be impervious to the elements. I have tested the exo barrier, which is on this Prime scope right here. I tested it on the Engage, on some of the Elite Tactical models. Nothing sticks to it. It is one of those fog-proof scopes that just kind of gets the fog off really quickly. Not only are the lenses impervious to the elements, the whole scope is. The Banner 2 is IPX7 rated, which means that you could actually take your whole rifle rig, drop it into a pond that's 3 feet deep, leave it there for 30 minutes, fish it back out, and then as long as your bore is clean, make sure you check your bore, then you should be able to continue your hunt, and the scope will be like, what just happened? That is incredible value for money. Now let's talk about the form factor, how this thing is built. Much like the Bushnell Prime that we have back here, we have a 1-inch tube. It's a 3 to 9 by 40, so it has that classic whitetail setup. It's very lightweight, 14 ounces, and it's going to have cap turrets, much like the ones that you see right here. And they actually click really well. Now again, this is the Prime, this is not the Banner 2. The clicks on here feel very solid, they lock in very tightly, and that's exactly how the Banner felt. It felt like they took the Prime right here and just transported a bunch of its functions and slapped them on top of the Banner 2. And knowing how well the current Bushnells track, I would expect that the Banner 2 would have very reliable, consistent tracking, and that it wouldn't wander zero between shots, or if you track away somewhere and then come back. This should be very easy to set up at the range, and it should maintain its point of aim no matter what you're doing. It should also be able to handle some pretty stout recoil, as long as you brace up behind your rifle pretty well. It has a 3.5-inch eye relief, which to me is just kind of on the okay side for a Magnum. So if you have something big, if you have a 30-06 plus, if you're getting up into 300 Win Mag, first off, the scope should be able to take that recoil just fine, but then you should have just enough eye relief that it's not gonna, kiss you. Just make sure that you have the rifle very solidly into the shoulder. As far as the optics go, let's talk a little bit more meat and potatoes here. Like I said, the image is very bright, it's very clear, it sees very well down into the darkness. There doesn't seem to be any kind of color cast, as I've been used to with modern Bushnells. There doesn't seem to be a difference between the outside light and what you're seeing through the scope. It should all just be very clear. And it does that wonderful effect of making it seem like objects that are far away are simply brought closer. It doesn't really feel like you're looking through a whole bunch of lenses. And this should continue back, into those dusk hours and beyond. If it's getting dark, just based on my limited testing that I did with the scope, it seems like you should still be able to see lots of details. When that big buck comes down just before the end of shooting hours, then you're going to still be able to count those tines. Now, as you might expect, there are going to be some trade-offs. You don't get everything for $100. So this does show some barrel distortion. It's actually not all that bad, but you do see curvature of objects, of course, especially ones that are closer than the 100-yard parallax distance. So yeah, you're gonna see a little curvature at the edges. I think that's gonna be fine for what most people are using this scope for. They're not gonna be too bothered by it, but I just wanted to let you know that it's there. Also, aside from the controls for elevation and windage, the controls don't feel all that great. When you turn the, this is nice. Yeah, when you turn the zoom ring on a Prime, for example, this feels extremely smooth. It doesn't feel like it's running on ball bearings. It feels like it's just kind of gliding through a fluid. Oh, this feels so good. Same thing with the adjustable eyepiece that we have back here. On the Prime, yeah, this just glides. It feels really, really smooth. And on the Banner 2, it feels a little clunky. You can kind of feel some hitches in it as it goes along. I don't care. I think that for, again, the price tag and for the value that you're getting from the scope, especially with the optics, those things just kind of fade away. There is another limitation. You're not going to be able to dial your turrets very far. I think one of the reasons why the image through the Banner 2 is so good is that we have larger lenses in the cam tube here. So you're only going to get 60 MOA up and down, left and right, and that's about half what you would typically get from a 1-inch 3 to 9 by 40 scope. And again, that's something that doesn't really matter. This is a kind of scope that you're going to lock and leave. You're just going to zero it for 100 yards, and you're going to just use it as it is. You're just going to use the turrets in order to get on target that first time, and you're probably not going to adjust out in the field. And that really matches up well with the reticle choice that they have. The one that I took a look through, that was a BDC reticle. They call it the DOA, and that one is going to have just your typical crosshair reticle that's a little bit. It's actually brilliant the way that it's set up. It's not too thin, not too thick. This is something that those of you that may have some eye issues, you'll still be able to see the reticle. And this is a bullet drop compensating reticle that's still gonna work for most of you guys. If you use the Bushnell app to put in your ballistics, maybe your bullet speeds, your ballistic coefficient, all that stuff, it's going to be able to tell you where the different hash lines in the reticle are going to hit your target. And in general, say with a 308, this is going to get you from 100 yards and then give you drops out to 500 yards. So that's going to be able to deal with your deer at pretty much all the practical distances that you'll be dealing with. The Banner 2 doesn't come with extra goodies like flip caps, but I was surprised to find out that actually in the box are going to be a couple of Weaver rings. That's actually pretty cool. I imagine they're going to be mediums so that they're going to work out well with most people's rifles. If you want to get really low, like I have my setup here on this rifle, I recommend that you pick up these Weaver quad lock. I've used quad locks on a bunch of different rifles, and these are great for those 1-inch tubes. Very simple to set up, very lightweight. This is mostly aluminum through here. And these get you extremely low down to the bore. You can see that there's a very thin gap between the scope and the top of the barrel right here. And that's going to be your optimum setup. You want to be able to get this pretty close down to the bore, so if you're kind of canted, you're not going to throw your shot. There are a couple other good reasons to head that way. Oh, and I almost forgot, one extra trick that the Banner 2 has up its sleeve. If you are looking off into a dark area and you have an off-axis light, which for you is going to be the sun setting, a lot of time with a lot of scopes, you're going to see these big reflections on the inside, and it's going to kind of bloom the scope out, and you're going to have difficulty seeing things in the dark. You're going to kind of lose contrast, you're going to lose some of your resolution, you're going to have a tough time keeping an eye on animals. But the way that the lenses work in the Banner 2, it's going to reduce a lot of those. It's just going to absorb light, and you should still be able to see your object very clearly with that off-axis light. That's the best scope that I can recommend in the $100 range. Now let's talk about a couple others if you have just a little extra cash. If you are nudging things up into the $150 range, then I want you to take a look at the Ride-On X1 Primal. This is again a 3 to 9 by 40. Very simple controls that actually feel really good, and the image through here is also just stunning. It does a really good job of keeping away that off-axis light, so if you have the sun setting near you, it's not going to bloom out your scope. You get a ton of resolution, edge to edge. You get a lot of good colors, great contrast. It is an excellent looking scope. What I'd like to do is actually compare the two back to back, the Banner 2 and the Ride-On X1, to see which one wins. I'm kind of curious about this, but I know that at the very least the controls, like the zoom ring and the diopter adjustment on the X1, felt better. So that one kind of, nudges it up and kind of indicates why the price tag is slightly higher. If we're taking things up to the next level, up to about $200, you might take a look at the Bushnell Prime. And they have a couple different 3 to 9 by 40 models. This is the illuminated model that has an illuminated red dot in the very center. So if you're somebody that has maybe some eye issues and you want to be able to further enhance your ability to see that target, especially in kind of messy, darker areas, then this might be the scope for you. You're going to be able to select between, I think it's 6 different brightness levels. You get that red dot in the center, and you're going to be able to acquire that target just a little bit more easily. Your eye is just drawn right to the center. As we head up past $200, you're going to get into some really good Engage models. They have Engage models all over the place, some with 30mm tubes, some with 1-inch tubes. So you can check those out and see which one might work best for you. They also have some that have some really cool reticles, like the Deploy MOA. So if you're one of the guys that likes, kind of the fine little hash lines so you can deal with drop and windage, as distances increase especially, this one's going to be great, I think, especially for some of you kind of longer range hunters out west. And as we step up to about $350, don't forget that I recently reviewed this guy right here. This is the Zerotech Thrive. This is a 3 to 12 by 44. Tons of light coming in through here, excellent resolution edge to edge, just great controls all around. And if you want to check out that full review, I'll put it up here. But this is one that extends those capabilities that you're going to get from a 3 to 9 by 40. This one expands it so you can take longer shots more precisely, especially since you can roll parallax here on the side. Well, thanks a lot for watching, you guys. I hope you got something good out of this. I'm going to put links to the various products that I mentioned down in the description below, so you can kind of see some options that are within whatever budget you have. And these are ones that I'm going to very much recommend. I think you're going to get really good use out of these. Big thanks to patrons of the Destructive Arts that make videos like these possible. I'll put their names right up here. I will see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley.
Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These 2 videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, the Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.